Welcome to PJ Maybe's YouTube channel. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. I'm going to do my first video on my commander, my favourite commander at that, Krenko Mob Boss. Krenko Mob Boss is a Goblin deck, surprise surprise, and I've created a couple of tokens because the amount of goblins I expect to put out are a few. As you can see, I've customised token down the bottom right hand side, and I've got a customised batch token which represents 5 goblins. So as you can see from the deck, it will be designed to put a lot of goblins out, bolster them and do a lot of damage very quickly. So Krenko, when you tap him, you put X 1/1 red goblin creatures tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of goblins you control. So in effect, every time you can tap them, double your goblins. So what we're going to do is have a deck which ramps, puts a lot of goblins on and bolsters them. So let's have a look at the creatures first. We'll start off with the Legends creatures. We have got Krenko, the Tin Street Kingpin. Whenever Krenko Tin Street Kingpin attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then you create a 1/1 red goblin token equal to Krenko's power. It comes in as a 1/2, so every time you attack, you bolster them, put more goblins on the stack, on the deck. Second one is Tuk Tuk the Explorer. When Tuk Tuk comes in, he's a 1/1, he comes in with haste, and when he dies you create a legendary 5/5 colourless goblin golem artifact creature named Tuk Tuk the Returner. So when he dies, Tuk Tuk the Returner comes back on. These two are designed just to give a bit of early damage. Next one is Pashlik Mons. When Pashlik Mons or another goblin you control dies, Pashlik Mons deals 1 damage to any target. So it's designed to do damage when your goblins leave the field. For 3 and a red, you can sacrifice a goblin and create 2 more. So if you've got enough extra mana, you can double up your goblin. We'll go on to the standard goblins now, and we will start with Siege Gang Commander. Siege Gang Commander enters the battlefield, create 3 1/1 red goblin tokens. And for 1 and a red, sacrifice a goblin. Siege Gang Commander deals 2 damage to any target. So in effect, gives you tokens on the field, and gives you an option to deal damage directly to players or particular creatures. Goblin Goliath. This is the biggest creature I've got in the deck, and obviously designed for a commander game with multiple opponents. 1/1, not a great card, but 3, 4, 5, 6 players even, which I've played against. It is great. It puts a lot of goblins on, because when the Goblin Goliath enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 red goblin tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. And for 3 and a red, you can tap him, and if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent this turn, it deals double that damage to a player instead. Gives you a wee bit extra boost if you've actually doing some damage. Right. Then we go on to Legion Warboss. Mentor. Whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on a target attacking creature with lesser power. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token gains haste until the end of turn and attacks this combat if able. Ideal, puts another goblin on the attack every time. So, and it bolsters itself. Beetleback Chief. When Beetleback Chief enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 goblin tokens onto the battlefield. Same again, more goblins. The more goblins the better, to allow Krenko to tap and double. Goblin Instigator. When he enters the battlefield, create another goblin token. What can I say? More goblins. A lot of my deck is designed to put goblins on the field. Dockside Extortionist. When Dockside Extortionist enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. Can be quite powerful, especially later on in the game. Gives you a lot of extra mana to put whatever you need out. Skirt Prospector. It's a mana ramp. You can sacrifice a goblin and add one red mana to your pool. The amount of goblins you're having out gives you that option to actually play extra spells. Goblin King. This is a ramp. Basically a damage ramp. All goblins get a +1/+1 and gain mountain walk. Ideal for against any opponent who is playing mountains. The ideal one would have Blood Moon here. It would actually make everything basic lands into mountains, or sorry, non-basic lands into mountains, but don't have it in the deck. Decided not to play it. Goblin Warchief. Goblin Warchief. Goblin spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and creatures you control have haste. Ideal. Reduces the cost of a lot of your spells, and everything coming on haste. Playing that before Krenko is ideal. Brings in Krenko at a lower cost, and you can tap them straight away. Goblin Chieftain. It's got haste, and other goblin creatures you control get a +1/+1 and have haste. Same again, bolsters your creatures and gives them haste straight off. Goblin Trash Master. Other goblins you control get a +1/+1, and you can sacrifice a goblin to destroy an artifact. Ideal against some of those decks that have artifact creatures that you want to get rid of, especially if you've got a lot of goblins. The main staple, Goblin Arsonist. When Goblin Arsonist is put into graveyard from the battlefield, you may have it deal 1 damage to target creature or player. Early on in the game is always ideal because people don't want the damage done to them. They would rather just actually have the one rather than have the 1 damage and kill a creature, maybe. Goblin Chainwhirler. First strike, and when he enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. Ideal, especially if you're playing against someone who's got a lot of very low blockers. 1 damage to a lot can clear someone's board. Mudbutton Torchrunner. When Mudbutton Torchrunner dies, it deals 3 damage to target creature or player. Same idea. People would rather have the 1 damage than the 3 when he dies. Grenzrose Ruffian. It's got melee. Whenever this creature attacks, it gets a +1/+1 till the end of turn for each opponent you attack with a creature this combat. Playing against 4 people with goblins, just throw 1/1 goblins at your opponents, can bolster him up by 3/4. Perfect for. And whenever Krenko's Ruffians deals combat damage to an opponent, it does that much damage to each opponent. So perfect for just hitting someone with no blockers and throwing small blockers at your other opponents. It does that much damage to everyone. Volley Veteran. When he enters the battlefield, it deals damage to target creature and opponent controls equal to the number of goblins you control. You can get rid of some big creatures out there. Doesn't do it directly to the player, but still gets rid of a big creature if you've got enough goblins out. And Gutter Snipe. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. Same idea, spread that damage around. This deck's not got a lot of instants, but it's got a good few sorceries which helps bolster it. Then you've got Legion Loyalist, which is haste and battalion. Whenever Legion Loyalist, at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control gain first strike and trample until the end of turn and can't be blocked by creature tokens this turn. Ideal. especially if you've got the maybe Taskmaster and things to bolster it up. Gives it especially the trample, can actually just go straight through a lot of smaller opponents and deal damage directly to the player. And Krenko's Enforcer. It's Intimidate. Creature can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or creatures that share a colour with it. So 2/2 only, but it basically means it could be unblockable in a lot of decks. Goblin Motivator. You can tap it and a creature gains haste until the end of turn. Ideal, put it down turn 1, then when Krenko comes on, you can tap it and Krenko can just bolster everything straight off. Tin Street Dodger. It's got haste as well. Tin Street Dodger can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with Defender, and that only costs 1 mana. So if it's bolstered, it can do a significant amount of damage just for 1 mana. Horde of the Boggarts. Horde of the Boggarts' power and toughness are each equal to the number of red permanents you control. Horde of the Boggarts can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. So in effect, it can come in, the amount of permanents you control, that's including lands, they basically can have a high power and it's got menace. Ordinary Goblin. When an Ordinary Goblin blocks or becomes blocked by a creature, Ordinary Goblin deals 1 damage to that creature. As far as I understand this, if somebody tries to block it with a 1/1, it does the 1 damage when it becomes blocked, and it can get rid of the 1/1 creature prior to it doing damage back. That's the creatures. Now we'll look at the artifacts before we go into spells. Got a number of artifacts which are designed to reduce costs or bolster. Hazarat's Monument. Red creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may discard a card, and if you do, draw a card. In effect, reduces costs of casting all my goblins, and it gives me card draw. The Immortal Sun. Players can't activate Planeswalker abilities, loyalty abilities. I don't have any Planeswalkers in this deck, so it's perfect for me. Stops everybody else dealing with me. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. Card draw. And spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, reduce mana cost, and creatures you control get a +1/+1, ramping the damage. So this one is one of the best cards I've got in my deck. It can do almost everything I need. God Pharaoh's Statue. Spells your opponents cast cost 2 more to cast. Does a lot of messing around with your opponents, especially that 2 extra to cast. And at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life. Does a wee bit of damage, not much, but every little helps. Throne of the God Pharaoh. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures you control. If you've got a lot of goblins who did damage, does a hell of a lot more damage. Door to Destinies. As Door to Destinies enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Obviously goblins. Whenever you cast a spell of that chosen type, put a charge counter on Door to Destinies. Creatures you control of that chosen type get a +1/+1 for each charge counter on the Door of Destinies. As you want to play a lot of goblins, that should bolster everything up, so you could have goblins with 5/5, 6/6, 7/7 with some of the earlier other ones which give you trample and first strike. It's ideal. Caged Sun. Caged Sun enters the battlefield, choose a colour. Red, obviously. Creatures you control of chosen colour get a +1/+1. More damage, bolster them. Whenever a land ability adds 1 or more mana of the chosen colour to your mana pool, add an additional mana of that colour to it. So mana ramp doubles the amount of mana you can get. 1000 Year Exiler. You may Activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. And for 1 colourless mana on tapping it, you can untap a creature. Perfect for Krenko. Tap Krenko, double your goblins. Use 1 mana to untap Krenko and then tap them again, double your goblins again. If you've got the one that gives them all haste, perfect. That means you've got all your goblins with can attack straight off. Arcane Encyclopedia. It's a card draw. Simple as that. Draw, for 3, I can draw a card. Heraldic Barra. As it enters, you choose a colour. Red again. Creatures you control of chosen colour get a +1/+0. And it adds 1 mana of chosen colour. So basically gives a wee bit more damage to your goblins. Heraldic Horn. As Heraldic Horn enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Goblins. Creature spells you cast of chosen type cost 1 less to cast. Reduce cost in mana again. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it in your hand. Just the extra card draw for creatures especially. And Ruby Medallion. What would be a red deck if you didn't have Ruby Medallion to actually reduce the cost? And surprise, surprise, Soul Ring. What commander doesn't love Soul Ring? 2 colourless mana. And the last artifact is Lightning Greaves. Equip creatures have haste and shroud. Basically have that out. Bring out Krenko. Equip it. That means he can't be targeted and he can actually start doubling up your goblins straight off. From there, we'll just look at the instants. I've got 4. Brightstone Ritual. Add a red mana to your mana pool for each goblin in play. Could be ideal later on in the game. It only costs 1 mana. If you've got Krenko out and he's doubled up, you can put a lot on the battlefield. Battle Hymn. Add 1 red mana to your mana pool for each creature you control. Same idea, similar to the Brightstone Ritual. If you've got a lot of goblins on, it can get you a lot of mana, get a lot of things out. Then we've got damage ones. Outnumber. Outnumber deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. If I've got a lot of goblins out, get rid of some big nasty creature. And the last instant spell is Massive Raid. Massive Raid deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of creatures you control. Hoping to have a lot of goblins out when this deals and could do a lot of damage to a player. Now we will look at sorceries. Most of these sorceries are, as you can imagine, putting goblins on. So you've got Krenko Command, putting 2 goblins on the field. You've got Goblin Gathering, create a number of 1/1 red goblin creatures tokens equal to 2 plus the number of cards called Goblin Gathering. As commander, you don't have another one, so it gives you 2 extra goblins. Dragon Fodder puts another 2 goblins in play. Hordling Outburst puts 3 goblins in play. Goblin War Party, you can choose one of each, so you can either create 3 goblin tokens or creatures you control get a +1/+1 and gain haste until the end of turn. Entwine, you can choose both if you pay the extra entwine costs. Ideal for just putting the extra ones in play, especially if you've already got the goblins out and you're waiting for Krenko. Then you've got Empty the Warrens. Put 2 goblin tokens into the battlefield and Storm. When you cast this spell, copy it for each spell you cast before it. So if you put a lot of 1/1, you put a lot of goblins out by spells, especially if you've used Empty the Warrens and stuff like that to get the extra mana, you can actually put a lot of goblins in the field with this one. You've got Goblin Rally, puts 4 tokens on the field, and then you've got Goblin Scouts, puts 3 Goblin Scouts tokens on the field, and they have got Mountain Walk. Goblin Offensive, put X Goblin tokens onto the field, where you've got this one costs X, 1 and 2 colourless. Same again, if you've got a lot of ones that actually reduce the mana cost, put a lot of goblins on for quite a little cost. So those are the ones that put the creatures on the field. Now the ones for damage again. Goblin Grenade. You sacrifice a goblin and you can do 5 damage to a target player. for 1 mana and a goblin. If you've got a lot of goblins, perfect. Crash through. Creatures you control get trample until the end of turn and you draw a card. Bit of card ramp, and if you've got your creatures bolstered up, give them trample, lets you get through. Echoing Rune. Destroy target artifact and all other artifacts with the same name as that artifact. Perfect if you're about to play your Soul Ring and your opponent's already got Soul Ring on the board. Play that, get rid of everybody else's Soul Ring, then play yours. Perfect wee card. Relentless Assault. Untap all creatures that attack this turn. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. Lot of goblins, attack, tap, untap, attack again, and then cast more spells. Always ideal to get more damage. And talking about damage, you've got Goblin Slide. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay 1 and put another goblin with haste onto the battlefield. Anything that puts goblins on the field is perfect for me. Impact Tremors. Whenever a creature enters, this is the enchantments, sorry I've missed that, we just went on to the enchantments without me realising. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. You're putting a lot of goblins on, perfect, you can actually do a lot of damage across the board to your opponents. Gratuitous Violence. If a creature you control would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that damage to the creature player. Basically doubles all your damage. It costs 5 mana, but 2 of them is colourless, so if you've got the things to bring that down, it's ideal. It means all your goblins could do 2 just at the standoff. As soon as you actually bolster them by 1, it doubles it all up. Outpost Siege. It's basically choose cans or dragons. With me it would be dragons, because whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, Outpost Siege deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So basically you get a lot of goblins out, they get killed, it does a lot of damage. Even things like board wipes to get rid of them all, you can still do a lot of damage as they leave. Warstorm Surge. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Doesn't sound a lot, especially if you're paying 1/1 goblins, but if you're putting a lot of goblins on, you can do a lot of damage. Boggart's Shenanigans. Whenever another goblin you control is put into the graveyard from play, you may have Boggart's Shenanigans deal 1 damage to target player. Same idea. Tokens, although they technically don't go into the graveyard, they basically hit the graveyard before they're expelled, so it still deals damage for tokens. Quest for the Goblin Lord. Whenever a goblin enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a quest counter in Quest of the Goblin Lord. As long as quest counters, the Quest for the Goblin Lord has 5 or more quest counters, creatures you control get a +2/+0. Bolstering their damage that your goblins can do, and the amount of goblins you're going to put on, that's going to come up quite quickly, that 5. You've got Sheared Animosity. Sheared Animosity. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you get a +1/+0 until the end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. You got a lot of goblins, you can attack, say if you attack with 10 goblins, each goblin gets a +10. If you've got that with your trample, whatever, you can do a lot of damage. Street Riot. As long as it's your turn, creatures you control get a +1/+0 and have trample. Same idea, you're just actually bolstering up the damage that you could do. Rage Reflection. Creatures you control have double strike. Anything to actually bolster a goblin's damage, always perfect. Then you've got Goblin Caves. Enchant land. So you're basically using this to enchant a land, and if you do, if it's a mountain, which most of the mines are, all of mines are, all goblins get a +0/+2. Gives you a bit more defense in your goblins. And the last enchantment is Goblin War Drums. Each attacking creature you control that opponents choose to block may not be blocked with fewer than 2 creatures. In effect, it's an older card, and it just means each of your goblins has menace. From that, we will go to the lands. basic lands are mountains. I got 27 of these. So just standard 27 mountains deck. And the non-standard mountains are Reliquary Tower. Basically always gives you that option if you don't get your cards, just don't want to throw your goblins away, considering how much damage you want or how many you want to put out. Looming Spires. When it enters, Looming Spires get into the battlefield. Target creature gets a +1/+1 and gains first strike until the end of turn. We bolster, and it's taps for red mana. Temple of the False God. Add 2 colourless mana to your mana pool. Activate this ability only if you control 5 or more lands. This is just in case out there. It's nothing special about it, especially with a Goblin deck. It's just all red mana, but gives you a wee bit extra. And my final card and final land is Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. When it enters the battlefield tapped, but whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control, if you control at least 5 other mountains, you may have Valakut, the Mountain Pinnacle, deal 3 damage to target creature or player. So later on in the game, perfect. Every time you put a land on, you're doing damage to players. So that's my deck, and this is my favourite deck. This is a deck that I'm actually looking at blinging out. I've got a few of them which are foils. I'm looking to foil everything out over the period of a few years, the way my money's going. But any advice on changes to the deck, please feel free to actually put in the comments. I want to keep it goblins, so I won't be putting dragons in, even though a lot of dragons deal with goblins and such. And I'm looking to bling it out, so anything you can think of to make this a wee bit more special, let me know. And comments are always appreciated. Thank you.